People have been talking in the transaction banking industry about how it's going to change, but this year might be the year we start to see that change. I'm now joined by Alan Verschoyle-King. He's the Global Head of Sales and Client Management at BNY Mellon Treasury Services. So, Alan, what do you think then is changing this year?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that question because, having been in this area for quite a long time now, I think we've talked about a level of change that we expected to see coming for a very long time. But actually, we're now beginning to see it. And I think it's possibly a combination of the financial crisis that we saw, 2008, 2013, but also just general changes in the industry infrastructure. So as everyone knows very well, we've got an incredible level of change driven by regulation. We've got new emerging infrastructures, mobile payments and other forms of payment. And we also have a new generation of people joining this business, I'm pleased to say, who come with different experiences and different expectations. I think we're kind of getting the perfect storm because of all those coming together. And as you've just said, we're now beginning to see a level of change that we've talked about for the longest time and is actually much greater than anything I've seen in my years in this area.
What about the change in attitude towards risk?
Well, risk's the big issue that everyone's talking about. And there have been a number of articles written recently that I think are making quite an interesting point because they're almost implying that there is a danger that we're moving away from the concept of understanding the risks in this business and managing those risks, almost into an environment where it's about risk avoidance. And I think in a transaction banking world, that presents some really interesting challenges because the very nature of transaction banking is about, to some extent, taking risks, of course, understanding them and managing them, but taking them. And if we're proposing potentially to move away from that altogether, I think there are big implications there in terms of the clients we'll be willing to bank, the geographies within which we're going to bank them, and the services that we'll offer to them as part of that. So really big emerging questions that we're going to need to answer.
And can you tell us about what you're working on at BNY Mellon? I understand that you've been upgrading your infrastructure, so can you tell us how that's been going?
We have. I mean, inevitably, we're all working on many things at the same time, but possibly the most fundamental thing that we're working on here is that the implementation of our new global payments infrastructure. It's something that we've been thinking about for a while and planning for a while, and now it's becoming a reality for us. So fundamentally, what we're doing is building a single global transaction banking platform that will allow us to transact in any currency, any value, anywhere, anytime. We've begun the rollout of that, and we've rolled it out in 2 of our major European branches this year. As part of it, we've become a direct settlement member of the CHAP system in the UK. But that's just the start. This will be a multi-year rollout that will cover many locations, many currencies. And it's I know I'm right in saying this, the single biggest investment that our Treasury Services business has ever made. And I think it's a critical one that positions us properly for our future.
And we're now sitting in your office in Canary Wharf, so a beautiful location in London. So how did you end up here? I understand that you could have been a lawyer, so what happened?
Yeah, well, I wish I could tell you it was a straight line process and going from studying law to doing what I do today, but it wasn't really. I studied law because I wanted to be a lawyer. It's all I had ever wanted to do. And then when I started to go for interviews at the end of my degree, suddenly realized, perhaps this isn't what I want to do. But didn't really have a plan B. So I went back to college, did a finance diploma, and then sort of naturally fell from there into the banking world. I spent 10 very happy years with Citi in London and Frankfurt, partly in transaction banking and partly in general relationship management. And then I had experience with a couple of other organizations, primarily in transaction banking. And then I had a foray into compliance. For my sins, I was group head of AML compliance for one of our competitor organizations. But then when I joined BNY Mellon 8 years ago, I went back into transaction banking. Because I have to say, it sort of feels like home for me. I love the clients, but particularly I love the people aspect of this business. It's one of the most people-intensive parts of banking, and I know that that's really what I enjoy. So I sort of felt as if I came home when I rejoined this area.
Thank you.